Thank you, Prof. Let me ask you one question, then we will open it. Maybe you also have questions you want to ask the larger Southern Cameroonian community. Let me ask you this question because it's important for us. You've given us an analysis of us. It's important for us to also have an analysis of where we are breaking the joints, for lack of a better analogy, of La République. Our not only moral victory, but our measurable victories, because we don't have a lot of behind the scenes. You know, people inside the system. We get general information that, yes, La République is hurting. Could you break down for us the impact both on the society, on the government, and maybe the near collapse of the regime as a result of this war, which they declared? What is happening on their end?
I think we are all students of history, and I spent my days really since 4 years working on civil wars. Yesterday, I spent a whole day yesterday working on the civil war again on the civil war of Ethiopia and Eritrea to understand the dynamics of it. And I ended up working again on South Sudan, the civil war of South Sudan, to understand what were the warring parties, what is the calendar of events, and what is the dynamic between independence in South Sudan and the fall of the dictator in the north in Khartoum. So, the same in Ethiopia, because I wanted to understand the dynamic, the relation between, let's say the dynamic relation between, on the one hand, independence, and on the other hand, the fall of a dictator. It is not automatic. And you have that case in Ethiopia, you have that same case in Sudan, and you are likely to have a similar case in Cameroon. And that's why, I did spend my whole 4 years analyzing all those wars. And I think it is important for us to disconnect independence from the fall of the Biya regime, because these are two different targets. So if the clarity of your target is not there, you are likely to lose it. I'm not sure, and I don't think that the target of Ambazonia is the fall of Biya. I think these are two different ones. So if it is so, it is clear that it is not the fall of Biya, it is rather to gain independence. Whatever the case is in Yaoundé, if Biya is there, so be it. If Biya is not there, so be it. But the goal is to gain independence. Then one can have a narrative that has a goal. You cannot have a narrative without a goal, without the clarity of your goal. What's your goal? Your goal is Boya. And that's what I like about it, is that the moment you have a goal, you have at least 3 steps of unity. You have a unity of purpose. You have a unity of leadership. You have a unity of, how can I say, of structure. Right? But a unity of purpose, a unity of goal is Boya. That is Boya. That is where you have your end road. And that's where you are going to be judged. So if you say that you won without having Boya in your hand, of course you have not won. Because since 2016, that was the goal. That has been set as the goal. It's Boya. So anything else becomes less important but that. Unity of leadership, you can talk about a unity of structure, having a united command, etc. That's something else. So you can, or united front, you can talk about it. But that unity of goal is established is something that has to be in front of you all along, every single day. And the moment you get closer to it, that moment, actually people, start taking you seriously. And of course, the person who makes it easier for you to get there becomes the leader. And of course, the structure that makes it easier for you to get there becomes the structure behind which all forces tend to coalesce. I mean, looking at other civil wars or even other movements, the Palestinian movement, you automatically realize that having a united front is practically impossible because, of course, at the end, you'll have 2 parties. For democracy to be able to flourish in Ambazonia, you need to have 2 parties. So it means it is not even in your advantage to have a united front for your future, for your own future. It is important to keep that competition going for 2 parties to exist after independence, you see. So therefore, the most important unity is not unity of structure. It is not even unity of leadership. It is rather the unity of goal. Take the example of Zimbabwe. Until the end, until even after independence, they had 2 leaders, Joshua Nkomo and Robert Mugabe. They had 2 structures, right? But they had one goal, which was the independence of Zimbabwe, and that one is what united them until there. right? So if you invest your time in finding what is one leader or in fighting for, I was listening to the speeches, on October the 1st from ground zero, everybody's saying we need unity. I said, no, just slow down. Competition is very good because it makes your future possible. You don't want to end up in the situation of Eritrea, for instance, where at the end of the day, you have one man who is commanding everything and, there is no possibility of having a future. So the competition is healthy along the way for you to be able to secure your future after independence. The Ambazonian leadership, I will say, will be strengthened in strengthening the fight to win. And that is issue number one in my case. Strengthening the fight to win and refugees is going to be issue number two. So the fight to win is number one, always. Because when you win, refugees have a country and they come back to. And all of us have a country, because we are all refugees anyway now. So they will have a country to go back to.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you, Prof. We have Comrade Fru Kimbang, hands up, and then we have Struggle Collins. Fru, go ahead with your question for Professor Nganang.
Thank you, moderator, and thanks everybody listening, and especially thank you, Comrade Nganang. I would say that we should not waste our time as a proud Ambazonia. We should not waste our time that we are educating Francophones. They spend the whole time trying to destroy us and also brainwashing us to be like them. And that is why we are acting the way we are acting. So we should not waste time. So first, and another thing is that, Comrade Nganang, thank you very much for your last question. I think you answered the question, what would the international community do to us, and why should we be going to the international community and the UN? If you listen, if we are very conscious about our own identity, I think the first thing that we have done is to identify who we are. We are Ambazonians. That's a big victory right there. You have to take hold and be proud of who you are. Then someone else can now respect you. And I will comment later. And then secondly, if you listen to Matthew Rosselli, this is a guy who lost a lucrative job at the UN. He said, briefly, don't waste your time with the UN. The UN goes to a place when the people have grabbed power and grabbed land and in control. They go there to negotiate with the people on the ground. They don't go there to bring peace. So I think Comrade Nganang has mentioned it. When we focus our attention and grab our territory, that is victory. And victory only multiplies. So the question is, what are we doing to ourselves to be able to do that for ourselves? Because once we start grabbing our territory, as we have, the international community reluctantly did not want to acknowledge our identity by Ambazonians, we force it on them. And some of us are reluctant even to do that. While La République has been pushing that we are Southern Cameroon, because they confuse us for their southern part of Cameroon. And we, I'm sorry for the language, foolishly and stupidly go with that promotion. So the most important thing that I want to ask my comrade in arms, Professor Nganang, is, please, what would you tell the Francophones in French? Because you are talking to us. We know our problem. We know how we'll solve it. And the problem is happening because the generation that grew up from 1972 till now, they are more Francophone. They don't even know who we are. They are, that's why we are who we are. Because La République's intention was to brainwash us to start thinking like them and forget our own values. And that is where we are. We spend more time fighting amongst ourselves than grabbing our land and knowing who we are. So the only request that I will ask Comrade Nganang is, please speak in French to the Francophones right now. They are the ones you should talk to. because we know what we will do. And my granddaughter has ignited the power in us to know that this game, it was a game, but now we are in for it. And every Ambazonian, when you see what happened to my granddaughter on the streets in Boya, you should be able to take this seriously. We don't need to educate the Francophones. We need to educate ourselves and take and the international community will come in when we start saying that Bamenda Airport is in our control. Boya is in our control. Mbengwi is in our control. That's when you see the UN knowing that they are going to come in and deal with us. Let us not be dancing around and talking about international community. They are business people. Brother, talk to our brothers on the east side of the Mongo. Please, if you can just say something, address them, not in English, but in their tongue, so that they can understand. Thank you.
Thank you to you, Patrice, for coming and talking to us. My question is a little bit going in direction of a Pan-African point of view. And although Prakimbeng has another view on how he looks at the situation at the moment, I feel the anger out of him, and that's why he's talking the way he's talking. But you, Patrice, you've passed through some stages here of your life here in Germany, and you also know how things were sometimes back, and also how many, because I think the brain box of the Bamileke people is here in Germany. And when I see such a brain box losing the grip of freedom or sight of their future and those of their children, it is very disturbing for me. And so my question is in this direction. Are you making some efforts to enlighten the Bamileke people? They are here in their thousands, in Germany, for example. Because some of them still just think that, for example, France is, for example, is still home. And that should be not the case. It should either be clear to them that France is the cause of that misery and the cause of the misery of their children in the future, if in case they do not take care.
Mm-hmm.
So there are certain things like that, because some of them, for example, for you, you may know Njoko. Njoko is one of my men. We were sometimes back. And so he's one of the people who is a little bit enlightened and is trying to, make things some way in his own way. But if we can have many of them, then we can start seeing a change. Okay. Yeah. So it is very disturbing for me, because as an Ambazonian, it will be disturbing for me to have neighbors who are not of to some level that we can have some understanding and do certain things with them.
Mm.
So, because if I think of a whole Africa with 14 African countries, what is the population?
Mm-hmm.
And what is the population of France? They are being controlled by France. And if that message can be sent clear, if I don't know when you're having some mechanisms to push that through, yeah, because it is disturbing for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's all what I want to say for now with regards to my question.
Okay, Prof. The floor is yours.
Okay, there is, I think I can actually blend those two questions together. I think we talk so much with each other that I think we tend to know each other. But there are, as a matter of fact, I would say there are two types of narratives, and you can actually locate the struggle in that constellation. You have a narrative of suffering. At the end of the narrative of suffering, you have genocide. And I suspect we did spend the first year establishing a narrative of suffering. Marginalization is one chapter of it, exclusion, etc., etc. You have the narrative of suffering. You get that much from it as well. And so you can win a lot from the narrative of suffering. But there is the narrative of victory as well. And I tend to think that the narrative of victory started in September the 16th with No PT's hit. So there you have the beginning of the narrative of suffering, really, where you had a young man who 4 years ago certainly did not know how to shoot a gun, and who was 19 years old, and who in 4 years has managed to be at the head of the command of a 100-man strong battalion. Even the military school in Yaoundé cannot get to that level of sophistication, and who managed to vanquish an officer who was trained in EMEA. So a narrative of victory doesn't need to be grand. So you don't need to have a statement saying that, the Bamenda airport has fallen, etc., etc. You start small. You win a small battle, and then you go to the next battle, and then you go to a bigger one. But you need to establish a continuity between that. What I'm saying here is that you need to have somebody who tells the news, who tells those news. Nobody taught those who make those videos. They realized it, and they saw that it was essential to locate the video and to say when it happened, and actually to be very fast, but also to find the name and identity of the Cameroon soldier who is killed, for people to know him, to have his face, to put a face on the soldier who is vanquished. So it is part of the narrative of victory there to locate it, really. But what needs to be done in the coming months, etc., is to establish now, as one says in English, to connect the dots, to be able to have a grand narrative. Here is where we are going, and people will fall in line, will come into that train, will understand that they are moving in a direction where victory is possible, and that possibility will certainly gather some more, momentum, etc. So that is essential. So I will say, moving from a narrative of suffering to a narrative of victory, and it started really in September the 16th. So if it is possible in all communication chambers of Ambazonia to pass that along for people to really fall in line on that and be able to mobilize along those lines when they establish the discourse of the war, then you will necessarily see things happening. Things happening meaning not only, Francophone Cameroonians, but mostly international institutions listening. And I'm going to be quite concrete there. A couple of months, it was 2 years ago, we went to Addis Ababa to have a tour of those institutions. And what all Africans who are diplomats share, and most Africans share that, is that they have an intimate knowledge of civil wars. So you can take West Africa, somebody from Cote d'Ivoire, somebody from Chad, somebody from Uganda. You're not going to tell him about civil war. I mean, a couple of years ago, if the person is 50 years old, he grew up in the civil war. Somebody from Rwanda, you name them, Chad, etc. So that is the universal knowledge of all Africans. We know civil wars, and out of them, they only had one question: what cities have fallen? So then, if you can pinpoint the cities that have fallen, so you have established a narrative of success. That is how they read it. And if you are not capable of doing that, they will say, oh no, you are still at the beginning, because you're not going to teach them how to fight the war. They did it themselves. And I'm going to go deeper. The Secretary General of the AU, that man from Chad, I mean, he himself came out of a civil war. You're not going to tell him about it. He fought it. So he knows the details of it. He knows when you win. He knows when you lose. He knows when you are in the infancy. He knows when you have a united front. He knows if you come, you are simply a faction, and you ask you how many factions, and he knows that you're wasting his time, etc. But the narrative is what makes you be taken seriously, because then he understands the dynamics of what's happening and where the future lies. So then I will simply insist on, the type of narrative you want to put forward. So to be careful about that, to be very careful. People can easily buy the fact that you are split, that we have factions, but it is normal. People understand that at a certain point, you need time to grow into a united front. Everybody understands that, but nobody will understand that you are losing and you want to have attention. Nobody, because then they will say, we would prefer to listen to the state. So you need to have a narrative that will make them take your own demands seriously. And that's what I call narrative of success. I think that regarding the Bamileke, maybe quickly I will say I did spend 2 years. I call them wasted years trying to organize the Bamileke. So I'm not going to do that again. I've moved on.
Okay, let us take a few comments, Prof. Go ahead, Dr. Fontem. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. Professor Nganang, I would like to very much thank you or sincerely appreciate the time you have taken to have this conversation with us.
I see who is Secretariat there. Anyway.
Yeah, I knew that you wouldn't make it out once you saw Secretariat. Well, I think that the disposition you have is actually the kind of attitude that we expect those in the academia to have with respect to these kind of serious issues. The problem we have often faced, and which made Southern Cameroons to think that we were done with French Cameroon, is that the people who caused us problems were the academics. You have people like Professor Owona and all those government apologists who felt that strangulating Southern Cameroons was the best way. And so things evolved over time. For those of us who grew up in that system, we knew that at some day we were going to have this fight. It was just a matter of time. I went to École Principale Bilingue, but I refused to cross over to Collège Bilingue when I finished primary school. For the simple reason that in the neighborhoods where we grew up, we were either treated as, we had plenty of Francophone friends, but some of us were tired of fighting every day in the neighborhood because we were either treated as people who ran away from war and were given a place to stay, and we're now asserting an identity or a place. And so even after I finished, some of us finished secondary school and were asked to go to Lycée Bilingue, we still protested. And so our fight has been from childhood. So I want to very sincerely thank you for the level of enlightenment, and I think it is late for Francophones for French Cameroonese to know the truth, because it's not going to change anything. They have been sufficiently indoctrinated to think that we are second class, we are slaves, we were captured, and so on. So we have to focus on what our goal is, to get the freedom of Southern Cameroons, to get the independence of Southern Cameroons, and to live like a decent people. Now, very much like the issues that you have given as priority, I think that defeating the enemy through the force of arms, which they started, is a priority. But I also want to call on our people to realize that assisting those in dire need is also going to help, particularly those in the refugee camps, the internally displaced, those in detention, those who are afflicted by this conflict, disease, and so on. It's also going to the casualty rate, because many people have died not from bullet wounds, but from the misery that this war has inflicted. And that is why the civil society network in this liberation group needs to continue to strengthen itself. And now, Professor Nganang, I think that you have pointed out that understanding the conflict is critical. And I think you raised the issue. The problem with the liberation, with the French Cameroon War, is that every time that a Bulu person is killed, they have to go looking for the body, because their commanders don't want to answer questions at home. You know that for the most part, the army was their exclusive preserve. They knew that it was their thing to preserve the power that God had given them. But they only opened up the army to recruit and the Wondos and Betis when the war started, because they realized that they could not afford to be the only ones dying. But when it was peacetime and they were making a lot of money from the army, So our people need to also realize this. And I'm happy and I believe that many of our political leaders and political organizations are following this discussion and will draw lessons from what the message that you have given today. And then lastly,
let us, yes, Dr. Fontaine, let us keep it rolling, please.
Yes, please. Lastly,
respect time.
Yes, lastly, the issue of pidgin. A certain professor from La République has often misrepresented and showed so stark, blatant ignorance about, and at some point even tending to call us pigeonophones. They should realize that if you go to the Caribbean, Jamaica, and all these other countries, language you hear there, which sounds like broken English, is actually a pidgin, which over time became the mother tongue of the people. A pidgin is a marginal language, which has been adopted by a people who do not have the same common language. And so over time, children who are born to speak that pidgin and not an indigenous mother tongue speak what you call a Creole. And a Creole is what you hear the Kassav singing. That is French-based Creole. There are English-based Creoles in Guyana, Jamaica, and all these other British colonies that used to be in the Caribbean. So I think for our personal understanding and for what this guy is doing, we need to understand that our pidgin doesn't have a problem, and we will continue to use it because it is a vehicle of communication that has served us greatly during this time of war. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Fontaine, for that. Pafru, go ahead.
Thank you very much. I really like this discussion. It's a mutual discussion. We discuss ideas and sometimes get disappointed when we start discussing people. Comrade Nganang, thank you so very much for your enriched wisdom that you have shared. But I would equally want to comment on the fact that we as Ambazonians, the way I look at it and the way the elders have told me, is that I classify ourselves in 3 generations. First of all, the generation that I call the backbone generation, which are the generation that came in they are in their 70s and in their 80s now. These are the people who actually came from Nigeria. They know the price of freedom. They saw what we were treated there and also came with the Anglo-Saxon mentality that you debate, you disagree, and you arrive decision through the ballot. And they were able to leave Nigeria and courageously came and settled and formed a nation. And then, I mean, part of my generation, those who lived from the late 50s to the 1972, I consider that generation too as a generation of the assimilated and those who have identity crisis, because we know a little bit of West Cameroon, how the civics we were taught about to be proud about ourselves. And then on that notion, so even in 1960, we saw through the Biafran War, mostly in Bamenda when I grew up, you saw how, I mean, it was treated and how the people rose up against the brutality of the Nigerians. And then also from 1972, those who were born during the Ahijo regime, their mentality was to brainwash us and make us feel and think like the Francophones. And they successfully did that. And that is the generation that I call the assimilated and those that are, they have a complacency. Because most of us, once we start speaking French, we feel that we have elevated ourselves so as to be accepted as Francophones. And that is the generation that really is really, I would say, messed up. But then you realize that the generation of today, from the 80s till now, this is the patriotic and the no-nonsense generation. They are the most educated. They have come up, they have seen that their parents have sacrificed a lot. You go to Bamenda, you go to Mancon, you go to the Southwest, the land that their parents own, this land are now taken over by people who came from outside. They are now strangers in their own homeland. And with all this education, they are jobless. They are forced to speak French. And these guys, they had to do something to claim their birthright. And what happened in 2017 when Biya did that, he gave them that opportunity to stand up, and they have stood up, patriotic. And you see the problem that is going on, which we see with our leadership, is that they are still buried in that Francophone mentality and not actually seeing what this new generation are dying and fighting. They know the price of freedom. We started with sticks, and now the way we are, that is reclaiming our identity. We are Ambazonians. We want our valiant soldiers. I don't call them on the ground boys, because this war is predicated because of their courage. We in the diaspora, we are lost fighting for titles, because what we should do, we should copy from Black Lives Movement and the Me Too movement. Black Lives Movement started by 2 Black women in New York. They mobilized the grassroots, and you see where it has gone to. The Me Too movement started by 1 woman, Black woman, in New York. And then in 2016, mobilized the average people. And then you see what the Me Too has done. It has toppled movie star, parliamentarian, politicians. But we have an attitude that we do not mobilize the areas where we are at the international community. We are talking about the UN. Who is at the UN? It starts from the ground level. We don't play that politics of going out there and mobilizing non-Ambazonians to speak for us. So we would rather rush to the UN and go and take pictures and think that the UN will deal with us. No, the average man on the street is the person that we should mobilize. I quite remember one of my white friends, let me sum it up. One of my white friends looked at our demonstration in front of the White House and said that, look at you people. You are carrying placards of your people who are massacred, maimed, and killed, but they see you people dancing and laughing and playing. Where are your white friends who will support you? Do you think is this going to the UN and these international communities that can do anything for us? We should do it ourselves. Thank you.
Points have been well taken. Prof, I don't want you to just be watching. If you feel like, coming in and saying something, please interject whenever you feel the need.
No. It is also very good to listen, right? I think it's part of our general exercise that we do not only talk, but also listen to each other. And I'm very much happy to listen, and I'm sure an opportunity will come in the middle and I will say something.
Jojo.
Yeah, thank you very much. I just want to thank you once more for bringing up that name matter. I can see a very beautiful t-shirt, the Amber Lives Matter. But unfortunately, some of us cannot even wear that. Some of us have been refusing to wear that. This identity thing is very important. It is time we stop accepting the name Southern Cameroons. It is time we stop accepting the name Anglophones and insist on calling ourselves Ambazonia. People change their name. We don't want to associate with the people who are killing us. So that is why you see people like Thibault Nach who say things like, we have a lot of Cameroonianness in us and we are not angry enough, because we still want to associate ourselves with the people that we want to disassociate ourselves from. You see, the other day I was listening to one of their programs, and one person was saying that they have given us special status. That's nothing. Very soon they have to give their own special status as well, meaning that they don't even have a clue. They don't even have a clue about what this fight is about. And that is because we still call ourselves Southern Cameroonians. We still refer to ourselves as Anglophones. And one of them said they should ban the appellation Anglophones and Francophones. And so we should be the one to ban it, not them. We don't want to hear those type of appellation anymore. We should insist on calling ourselves who we are. We want to establish a nation. We want to get Chuboya. We want to call ourselves Ambazonians, and we should stick on that. I'll just leave it at that. Let other people speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Comrade Jojo, for keeping the time. Bomboy, go ahead.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. And once more, Prof. Nganang, I appreciate you and welcome you. Maybe I should remind you, the years you spend in trying to organize the Bamli case are not wasted years. It's time well invested. There are people who don't learn. They grew not to learn. They want to see and analyze and remove themselves from the equation. The take home for me from you today is people support victory. People will come and talk to you when they see you victorious. Anything else being constant, this is a take home for me. We need to focus on victory. I think for 60 years, we have tried, perhaps naively, to try and be gentlemen to people who don't understand what it means. We have swallowed, they disempower us, they underdevelop us. They loot our resources in broad daylight. They carried machine, they close bank, they close schools, they break bridges. We keep saying, maybe they have a better idea. Maybe they have a better idea. They call us dog, yet we call them governors. They call us animal, we call them administrators. We haven't taught them what it is to be a human being and be humiliated by another human being just like you. Until we do that, we are wasting our time in saying we are trying to speak to them. We haven't even succeeded in speaking to our own brothers and sisters who are the enablers. How the hell do we think we can speak to people? First of all, they don't understand your English. If you try to express yourself in French to them, just because you want them to get a picture, they criticize your French accent. They don't care about the message. Sum that up, and I say, only when a Betty Bulu is laying down. For over 5 years, I saw for the very first time a clergy in the Betty land asking soldiers to go and tell the president that is too much.
Yes.
My understanding is he is not saying it's too much because people are being killed. No, he's saying our children are being killed. They were not supposed to be killed. If now that they are killing them, please stop. That tells me that we got something right there. And if we got something right there, that's what we have to be doing. Maybe if we have to campaign for international organization to help us cater for our refugees and the internally displaced so that we can focus on the winning pattern. We have wasted so much time running after the international community who are there, but not doing anything, not even to say they're not doing enough. They're not doing anything. And I understand they're not doing anything because we have nothing to offer. Coming to talk to us is like talking to the losers. That's why they always go to the government. That's why Thibaut Nagy will say, it is in the culture of the American to accept a token diplomatically. What does that tell you? It tells me if we had a token for him, he will accept it. And what will be that token? It's victory. Because each time we make inward drive, he has a word to offer. But still, our leaders don't learn from it. They've never asked themselves what makes this guy speak. Because when he speaks, a confused country called Cameroon, it is the first country in the world. I struggle to understand that you have people who call themselves professeur agrégé. When they are on international and national radio and television, cannot distinguish the difference between a political party, a government, and a state. They speak for all three in one person, and they speak rubbish. Sorry for my language. They speak utter rubbish. When you question them on their articulation, they will come on you about their age. They will tell you how they are, advocate, agrégé, and franc, and all of those. So, how do you think, Prof. Nganang, you can assist? And I'm saying this because one of the comrades is already tasking you to say you made a promise. Can we deliver on that promise? Can you open some door for us to be able to push this forward and get victory? You are already an ambassador for this struggle.
Thank you.
In America, they say you've done time. You did not do time because of the book you wrote. You did time because of the people you spoke to in Cameroon, because the things that you said in Cameroon, that's why you did time, because you are one of us. Why are you going to these people? So maybe I should make it clear to you that by virtue of your personality, you are a self-proclaimed ambassador for the Ambazonian struggle. I want you to take along. You already said you have a group of people working with you. I want to say, can you extend your hand around? I don't see you visible in South Africa where you are based. I don't see you in other. Can you extend your hand so that some of us can collect information that you can analyze and help put out in a better way?
Yeah, my answer
Other than that, thank you very much, and more courage, and keep doing the great work.
Yes, my answer there really, brother, is that's what has been happening. That's my breakfast every single morning. You know, I don't know if that when it started automatically the moment I came out of jail. It became my daily breakfast. So information coming through WhatsApp, you know, etc., and I do my best to put the dots together and to construct a narrative. And I've decided, you know, since the closing of our confinements, I've decided to open up the chapter of the narrative of victory. And I've posted there a list of...
Who is that?
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
I've posted a list of medals because I think I've simply noticed that September the 16th, that was a turning point, you know, meaning that we've opened a new chapter of the war on the ground. And my focus is the war on the ground. It has been less the refugees really, because I think victory will solve their problem. And because, you know, the offensive, because Ground Zero went on offense, if you want, it is also essential, I felt, to have a certain sense of recognition for anybody who is showing courage, who is showing bravery. And it is simply part of the general tradition of human structures that people who show bravery, who show courage are recognized. So I had a small pool internally and externally, people giving me ideas. So these are the few ideas I came up with for civilians, certainly, and for combatants. So it is being designed. So these are things that start from nothing, like, you know, any struggle starts from nothing. And one will see where it will go. The point is, of course, to be able to be as neutral as possible, to recognize the best, and to be as courageous as possible, to be able to distinguish between acts of simple destructions and acts of bravery that push the narrative of victory forward. So we'll work on that. And that's one file I just opened. It's last week. You know, it is one chapter, for instance, in terms of answer. I wanted to also maybe say something about what my friend, my brother, Fontenelle said before regarding Pidgin. I consider Pidgin to be the revolutionary language of Cameroon. And, you have pre-Pidgins, from Shumum to Kamtok to et cetera, et cetera. I'm not going to go into those details. But the Pidgin you have on ground zero is the revolutionary language of the struggle. And it just happens that that's the way I feel, and that's my conviction. And that's why my last book is 1/4 in Pidgin. So even though I'm not fluent in Pidgin, I did myself, I can write easily. So I felt that it is time for us to have literature written in Pidgin, essential books written in Pidgin for people to not only know what is happening, know the history, but also have the language of that history used in telling the story. All right, so these are the kinds of things I can do, and I've seen around us. Somebody mentioned Tibonagi. It is clear that Tibonagi is jobless. So if I can suggest, I'm not sure if I'll gravitate towards him in Texas very fast, but it is clear he's a man who needs a job. That is somebody who, if there are people in Texas, I will say that please go and knock at his door and talk to him. He clearly needs a job, and he needs an organization. He needs to be part of a structure, et cetera, et cetera. So he's jobless. So I would say help him. And it is very good to see a friend who is raising his hand. He's been raising his hand now for 3 weeks a month. And he is somebody who is quite powerful. So that is somebody you need to talk to. And I'm convinced your voice is going to be more powerful than mine in that constellation, particularly because you speak from the standpoint of Ambazonians, from the standpoint of Southern Cameroonians, etc. And you have enough leverage in terms of your structural position to find somebody who can speak eye to eye with him. So that's one idea I will put on the table. So 3 ideas, therefore, in terms of suggestions. But we'll move forward, right? So the year just started. The year in my calendar is the calendar of victories. It started on September the 16th, and we'll see what is to be done.
Thank you, Prof. We have 3 hands up for comments. We'll take Comrade Charles Agbo, Comrade Etasi, and then Amber Farmers. Comrade Charles Agbo, the floor is yours.
Okay. Hi. Good evening to everybody. Thank you very much, Professor Nganang, for your contribution so far. I like your concept of victory a lot. It summarizes a lot of things. But what I want you to look into today is this concept of identity. Identity actually defines this struggle. So it is important that we look deeply into it. Now, it is clear that colonization constructed the identities of nations. And this is the case for Southern Cameroon and French Cameroon. Now, German colonization did not construct any of our identities. None of the 2 people used the German administrative system or the German political system or the German language. And those who want to link us to German through German colonization, let them show us where that German colonization impact our identity. I'll take one aspect of our identity, civil liberty. And I'll argue that the French Cameroon did not have full civil liberties because France did not give them. I've heard audios and videos. I even heard one of their professor of philosophy. He was arrested and brutalized by somebody in the internal security. And the person unilaterally told him that he should not leave the country. And he was surprised that why should the person tell him not to leave the country without due process? But I said that official is right because France gave the civil liberties to the authorities. He gave the civil liberties of the Francophones is left to the interpretation of the authorities. On the other hand, Southern Cameroonians inherited, as part of our heritage, civil liberties as part of our identity. And we have freedom of press, freedom of expression, freedom of association, all those things. My argument is that the Francophones did not have that. And that's why there was a migration. And it's not because of that, there was a migration of Yaoundé people into Southern Cameroon. I don't know if it was the 40s or 50s. Because my mother even told me that Yaoundé people used to dance in front of the house for food. And that's why we have Yaoundé quarters in most of the Southern Cameroon towns. So my argument now, I will develop more on this identity issue later on. What I want you to look into is that the Francophones did not get full civil liberties. They do not have the liberties that they did. That is supposed to come from a Western country, in the image of France. France did not give them. So we have to defend our own identity, what we inherited, our heritage, which is this freedom, which is freedom of press, freedom of expression, freedom of association, all those things. And our education system is still the liberal education system. All those things, you have liberties there. That should follow, even the economic system will be economic liberalization, free market kind of principle, all those things, the freedom, all those things, which is not the same as in French Cameroon. So I want you to look into this thing and give us 1 or 2 words. But thank you.
Thank you, Comrade Agbo. Let's take 2 more comments. Prof, if you're making notes, that way you can respond. Let's take Comrade Etasi.
Yeah, I was just thanking Prof again one more time, and this is not, I don't intend to be long, just to piggyback a little bit on what Agbo said, this identity issue. I remember not too long ago when Edwin Gang was hammering or hampering on us changing or not even identifying with Cameroon. Nothing should be Cameroon on identity. And Ambazonia, I remember him saying it, and he's a product of Dr. Padinka. Now, getting to tell people about us or trying to reclaim or us claiming the Ambazonian identity without the Cameroon, I'm just wondering, how could we articulate this identity of Ambazonia, talking to a stranger, talking to our friends, the whites and the blacks here in America, without resorting to calling or to referring even to Southern Cameroon or Cameroon, in order that they don't get confused? If I want to articulate or tell somebody about my identity as an Ambazonian, how do I articulate that? How do I put it out there without resorting to the independent 1961, joining with La République, and now assimilation and annihilation? I would just be happy if somebody could just help articulate what my identity as an Ambazonian is, what I can tell somebody out there without even mentioning or without resorting to the English, to the history that is becoming convoluted and confusing. I don't know whether anybody could help with that. That is what I have.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to say about identity. I think these, I have my own way of looking at all that, because obviously the identity issue is the backbone of the struggle. That is, the bedrock of the struggle. But history is important as well. So identity is certainly, let's say the sea, the ocean out of which we'll have a fish or something like that. But history is important as well, and we don't want to forget that. Through history, you can build up alliances, connections. You can have people listen to you. Having spent 8 years of my life in Germany, I know that it is, or even in the United States, it's important to connect people to your own story. And that's a way of connecting the Germans to the struggle. because they are the ones who drew the map, even if we were there in the first place. That's why I did not say that they gave us an identity. I say they brought us together and by drawing the map. So, and there you can win friends in their own environment because you connect your story to theirs and you make sure that they are interested. Because it is at this particular moment in our interest to have people listen to us who are not necessarily fans. So what are the people who are likely to do so and who are powerful as well? I mean, if somebody from, let's say if somebody from Namibia will listen to us, it is very important that the person does. If the Namibian government does, it is very much important. So I don't mind at all. It just seems to me that if you can establish a connection to a government that can listen to you or to a parliament that can listen to you, it is a winning argument already. And if you have a narrative that is built on joint history, that will help your case. That's the only thing I wanted to do, to say, not touching the, any issue regarding identity or the like. I'm answering to Charles right now because we were, because you mentioned the issue of identity. Charles Akbar.
Okay, thank you. It looks like Comrade Charles Akbar has a follow-up. Charles, go ahead.
Prof, I was not referring to your comment about Germany. What I mean, there are people in La Republic of Cameroon who try to link us because of the German colonization.
Okay.
Yeah, not because of what you said. The question I want you to actually address is the fact that the French Cameroonians don't have full civil liberties. And that France did not give them those. France gave their liberties interpreted by the authorities. And those authorities themselves, once they stop becoming the authorities, they fall foul with the same law. So they don't have full civil liberties, not as what we inherited in Southern Cameroon.
Okay. But is it something you want to care about? It's like thinking about Gabon or Congo or I don't know, Chad, when you have your own issue. I think having your own path is essential. At a certain point, it may be necessary to have an alliance in Douala, meaning and anyone will hope that Douala will rise, that Yaoundé will rise. But, having spent a couple of years working through the issue, it seems to me more important is the city war, meaning Boya and Bamenda at a certain point will have to fall. But it is too early to me because you don't want to put, Bamenda and Douala in a position where they will fall for 2 days and be taken back. So, and because the casualties will be, coming with those setbacks. So I was just trying, strengthening a position in the, the bush war is essential in the bush, in the villages, in the rural area for the moment, because it helps people in the city have a consciousness, coming back to that idea that, victory is the best teacher. And taking the clear case of what NOPT did, it simply changed the narratives totally. One can honestly say there is a time before NOPT and there is a time after NOPT in terms of the Francophone telling of the story itself, in terms of the narrative, in terms of how an Ambazonian is perceived. If before an Ambazonian was looked down upon, I mean, it has changed totally. I really had to go back and look at all the pictures of NOPT to realize that even he himself as a person changed in terms of his own presentation. You remember, before we had the LCAS, the, Field Marshal, etc., but we have a narrative that is being composed, a totally different narrative. And it is on top of all that, where you will have even one, even two, or even three leaders of substance, really. One talks of the Robert Mugabes of the world, or of the Joshua Nkomo of the world, but they don't come out of nothing. They come when they have a sense that there is a winning somewhere, when they feel that their own interests can be aligned with the interests of the struggle. You can even add it to the case of Eritrea, all those kinds of leaders, the Benbelas of the world. Or to be quite concrete, somebody like Crispo Muñoz, etc. Why will they publicly identify, Ambazonia? For the moment, it is a losing proposition. But the moment you start winning and winning and winning, he will be jumping on, on the wagon. So these are the kinds of things you want to think about in terms of how changing the narrative, changing the articulation of your struggle, the putting the dots together makes you actually have new people inside Southern Cameroons, but also outside, because then you will have all those francophones who were used to, thinking about Anglophone as blah, 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 blah. Suddenly they simply have different types of people in front of them, and the dialogue changes. Even your next close neighbors who are the Bamileke, the Sawa, because neighbors know each other way too well to be able to insult each other. So even those kinds of languages of jokes change drastically depending on the kinds of results you have, on the table. So I'm a strong advocate of a narrative of success, in a narrative of winning. A friend of mine was saying that, of course, with Africa, one will always have to be careful because propaganda, is one of the things that we tend to do very easily, and setbacks are always very fast, very quick on our way. But these are, it is part of, that is the world we have chosen, if you want. It is, if you eat fish, certainly it is going to be fishy. So if you drink water, it's going to be liquid. So it is part of the nature of the job. But finding a new narrative is essential here. And with it, you have new chapters, you have new characters, you have new topics, and it's happening. I simply drafted on my own wall, historical wall. I simply said, September 16th, everything changed, and we go from there.
Thank you. Let's take one more comment, and then we will just round it up.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much. I just want to, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I just want to attempt an answer to the question that our brother answered. How can you tell the story of Ambazonia without mentioning the Southern Cameroons? We've talked about Ambazonia to the point that most people know about Ambazonia already. In cases where, in situation when the person that you're talking to does not know about Ambazonia, then you can explain to the person that Ambazonia is a former British Southern Cameroons that was colonized by the British. Then you take it from there. So it is us who have to imprint the name, who have to make people to know that that is our name. When the Burkinabean changed their name, they announced it and people knew the name.
Amber Farmers, let's just keep it short and then go ahead. You have the floor.
Yes. Thank you so much, Professor Nganang, for for your brilliant presentation. My aim here is not to really embarrass you, but I want to take this opportunity to really thank you personally, because for your pragmatism. Maybe you didn't know about this, but I would like to let you know that you were the very first person to contribute to the refugee women's honeybee project in Nigeria. I sent out the the information to you, and in less than 5 minutes, you had sent in your contribution. I just want to use this opportunity to thank you. It was not my intention to embarrass you or to let people know, let the world know what you do as a private citizen. But I think this was very important, to let the world know that you don't only talk the talk, you walk the walk. So thank you very, very much, for always being there. Not only in academics, but in the trenches. So thank you again very much.
I would just like to say, I think all of us are grieved. I'm not going to add my voice to the grieving. I think we are on a battlefield, and it is important to look at those things also pragmatically and tactically. A couple of things happened around her death, and those are historical things. And I'd like to mention two. The first is that we live in a country called Republic of Cameroon where justice has collapsed, and we have an increasing number of lynchings of street justice. it is everywhere. So we saw an escalation of the beating of gendarmes and police people to such an extent that Atanganji had to come and give a statement about it. But these were simply beatings. You remember before we had the beating of citizens, of thugs, of let's say thieves or suspected thieves, they were simply killed. That is the reality in our lives. But the fact is that for the first time, we saw a gendarme being lynched and being, lynched. So what I find interesting is the number of stones that were thrown on him. Don't say that I mentioned simply random things, but it is important because you can measure the anger of Southern Cameroonians on the number of stones that were thrown on somebody who was already dead after the first stone. So it is people who were so angry, so systematically and fundamentally angry that they wanted not only to kill him, but to kill him 100 times. So it is the measurement of a population's anger. The second thing is, the anger was, such an extent that they killed somebody who had a gun, and he could not use his gun because, we saw the video, the first woman who hit him, was so rapid, and, the people simply jumped on him, and that was it. The second thing I want to mention is that, and the audio came afterwards, there were two. So it means you had not only that, Mvogo guy, but also another policeman who was taking a picture of him came out. He had a gun. It was enough for him to shoot in the air, simply, and people will think twice. Some people will start running away, run for cover, etc., and his colleague will have been saved. He did not do that. So he decided to let his colleague die. So I was thinking, okay, what is the level of dysfunctionment in the army where you have two armed people, one is being stoned and the other one has a gun and does nothing, and look at his colleague who is being killed and let it go, and his colleague is killed. Some people came up and said maybe he didn't have enough enough bullets. Maybe he knew he would be next. Maybe he wanted to save his skin. But it is a new scenario here because it shows a fracture inside the military force. What is clear, though, is that if the chief of the post, and somebody sent me his audio, you may have seen that audio circulating everywhere with the same background picture. It is because it is me who put it together on my computer here, and I sent it everywhere. So you have it everywhere, that audio of his boss. And his boss is Bulu as well. So you can imagine now the boss is Bulu. The guy who was on the street was killed is Bulu as well. And the other guy who did not use his gun to save him, I'm pretty much sure he's not Bulu. I'm pretty much sure he may be Bamileke, even looking at his picture. I suspect, from the shape of his body, I suspect he is rather Bamileke, or he may be, from Sawa or Bassa, but he's not Bulu. It shows a fracture in the army, and that is essential because I've worked for 2 years to have military, run away, from, the army, and I know somehow the social background of many of them. They tend not to be, Bulu at all. They tend those who run away. These are two historical things I want us not to forget. Is that one, we had the lynching of a soldier, and it never happened in Cameroon since the independence of that country. Never, never, never. That is new. Second, we have a soldier who witnesses that lynching and decides not to do anything. So if it is possible to underline that as the possibility of a crack inside the military machine, because of the intensification of the tribal nature of the soldier, of the military in Ambaland, so we have a chance. We have a chance of maybe insisting on that, on having a vocal, propaganda towards soldiers, and we were working on that, I think, with Fu, to have a messaging towards soldiers for them to understand that they do not have to accept crime. They do not have to accept the fact that their boss is Bulu, the guy on the street is Bulu, the general maker is Bulu, Betia Somo is Bulu, and that line of duty of Bulu people is sending them to kill their own sisters and brothers. So if they understand that, we can intensify the crack between those soldiers and make sure that that those who don't have to die do not die in vain, and those who really want, the Bulu people who go there to kill actually die in the process. So if one can work on that split, I think we may have a light there. So that is what I wanted to say quickly.
Thank you, Prof. And I think one of your audios or one of your live presentations on Facebook, you talked about the importance of having an embedded reporter, which is something you want to do. I think it's important that those Bulu people, when they start seeing more of the reality, because they are being manipulated on the reality, when they start to see their own people dying, like the priest, they themselves would begin to, call their sons back. So I think that is something I would like to get the copyrights from you, so we could also start it and be educating them, at least showing them the reality, because sometimes the images is what would really break their resistance or their misunderstanding of what's happening to them. Edmond or Herman, either of you, just a 2-minute closing remark on behalf of the town hall, and then we'll give Professor Nganang the very last word for this segment.
Prof, I don't even know whether to call you Prof, Patrice, brother, or whatever, but any one of that qualified. Prof. So, just for the relationship and, but for the importance of the occasion, let's give thanks to where thanks is due and give, the titles to who the titles are due. And you came here as a professor, as a writer, but more importantly, as a freedom fighter. People always say nobody cares what you know until they know that you care. And this is really the reason why Ambazonians care. So they care about what you know just because they know that you care. And I think that really one of the things that you have actually adequately alluded here and made for people to really get and appreciate you for that, it's really looking at this conflict, not just from the man on the street, like they will call l'homme de la rue in French, but then from an intellectual piece and taking those two and marrying it. It takes talent. It takes somebody who has been very, very engaged and understands that to know. And I was actually touched by the question somebody asked you, why do you do this? And it was just because this is what human beings are supposed to do. And I'm just saying, Ambazonians really thank you, and we express our thanks to you. One of the things we would like to let you convey also to every person who is in the same mode or looking at you as this shining light of the beacon of that, the moral beacon, is that Ambazonia doesn't fight only for itself. Once Ambazonia gets free, Ambazonia wants to be the bastion of freedom for all freedom seekers, for all freedom lovers. In our game, we think that had UPC won the war, we would not have been here at this point fighting this war. Mm-hmm. And once Ambazonia wins the war, and win it, we will. It gets its freedom we will have. And especially with good friends like you, that is going to be the bastion where, like the Mumis and the Omyobes who sought refuge in Kumba back in the days, mm-hmm. that all of those freedom fighters would come, sit there and plot to get to liberate La Republique. Once we get freedom, we want stable neighbors. Mm-hmm. We don't want chaotic neighbors because their problems will become our problems. So in fighting for our freedom, we fight because we love ourselves. We don't fight because we hate any person. And you have actually reminded us about that, and we thank you very much. And you are here. And as the moderator said, that feel free, be with us to follow through. We would like to get your comments, even as we say thank you, and hope that this is one of the many interactions that we have on this town hall platform, which the town hall is a market square. You being from the Bamileke region, you know what a market square is. You go there, everybody goes there to talk what different various things. So we heartily appreciate you. I think Baby Matter will be smiling from heaven. Then Gabu 13 will be smiling and saying, we get people. Caroline would be smiling. right? The 7 angels killed in, slaughtered in Mother Teresa, they will be smiling, and so on. And so thank you very much again. I can go on and on, but I don't want to take on so much. We have so much to cover, and we sincerely appreciate what you do. And be our friend. Welcome to Ambazonia. It's your adopted country.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That's the only thing I will say here now. Thank